Imagine a world where secret government experiments target unsuspecting citizens, manipulating their minds without their consent. This isn't the plot for a horror movie or a sci-fi TV show like The Stranger Things. This is the real story of Project MKUltra, a covert CIA program that remains one of the most controversial and ethically troubling chapters in the US's history. The origins of MKUltra lie in the early 1950s during the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in an intense rivalry with each other, each seeking to outdo one another in every possible way. Amidst the fear of Soviets developing mind control technologies, the CIA decided to embark on its own research into the psychological warfare into what is now known as Project MKUltra. When talking about this project, it is important that we talk about the key figures and the leadership figures behind this project. MKUltra was officially sanctioned in 1953 by then CIA Director Alan Dulles. The program was led by Sidney Gottlieb. Sidney Gottlieb was a chemist often referred to as a black sorcerer or a dirty trickster. Gottlieb was deeply involved in the program's most controversial experiments. Some additional information on Sidney Gottlieb. Gottlieb was born to a Hungarian Jewish immigrant family. His parents' names were Fanny and Lois Gottlieb in the Bronx on August 3, 1918. His older brother was a plant biologist by the name of David Gottlieb. He had a stutter since childhood. He earned a master's degree in speech therapy from San Jose State University after retiring from the CIA. Sidney Gottlieb was also born with a club foot, which got him rejected from his military service during World War II. Now let's take a look at the background of Alan Dulles. Born on April 7, 1853, and died on January 29, 1969. He was an American lawyer who was the first civilian director of the Central Intelligence and one of the longest-serving directors to this day. As a head of the Central Intelligence during the early Cold War, he oversaw the 1953 Iranian coup and the 1954 Guatemalan coup. Some more interesting information on Alan Dulles. He was a member of the Warren Commission that investigated John F. Kennedy's death and assassination, a conspiracy theory suggesting that Dulles and the CIA were somehow involved in Kennedy's assassination and its potential cover-up in the Warren Commission have been the subject to many popular debates among historians, politicians, commentators, and conspiracy theorists. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, also known as the HSCA, concluded that the CIA was not involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy by an investigation done by the CIA, which is kind of funny. It's like the CIA saying, hey, we didn't do it. Here's an investigation by us saying that we didn't do it. Now that we have some background knowledge on MKUltra, let's talk about the methods of experimentation. Specifically, what was used, how was it used, and why was it used? The first one we'll be discussing is LSD. The CIA was particularly interested in the effects of LSD on the human mind. They administered it to both willing and unwilling subjects to observe its impact on consciousness and human behavior. One of the most infamous incidents involved a CIA operative by the name of Frank Olson, who was given LSD without his knowledge. Olson sadly experienced severe psychological distress and died under suspicious circumstances that were initially ruled a suicide. Some people speculate that another FBI operative killed him so that the word would not get out. LSD, also known as lysergic acid dimethylamine, was used by the CIA for its effects in creating strong hallucinations. They wanted to give these to people that were under interrogation in order to get them to panic and say that they are guilty or not, even if it is true or not, because the panicking effects that LSD has on the mind. LSD is also known for having many psychological effects on the brain even after the user is done using it. It can cause permanent psychological distress and harm and trauma. It can cause a person to feel a long-term form of depression and derealization syndrome. This can lead a person to commit suicide or some form of self-harm, whether it be to themselves or the people around them. Again, even after the drug was taken once, it can have these effects many days, months, and years after. The second method of experiments that were used in the MKUltra project included hypnosis. Researchers explored whether hypnosis could be used to enhance interrogation techniques and implant false memories onto individuals. These experiments included to create a hypnotic soldier who could carry out missions without being aware of their surroundings. This is kind of like that one Family Guy episode where they say something that wakes a soldier up. Yeah, it's based on a real thing that was attempted, however, was never fully successful. The third method of experimentation included sensory deprivation. Subjects were placed in isolation tanks to study the effects that sensory deprivation has on the human mind. This often led to severe psychological distress, including hallucinations and derealization. Sadly, methods like this are still used in the modern day in most prisons where they have sensory kind of prisons where there is a certain amount of light given to the prisoners, certain amount of room given to the prisoners, and certain amount of visual aesthetics that they're allowed to have in the room. This sadly doesn't rehabilitate an individual, this just causes them to get worse and even proven to become more violent. However, that is a topic for another time. The fourth and final method of experimentation included electric shock therapy. This method was used to disrupt memory and behavior patterns, sometimes resulting in long-term mental health issues. Another thing that is quite noteworthy when talking about the electric shock therapy is that they were regulated by medical professionals, however, were not regulated in measurement. So they were given twice the amount of electric shock therapy because this is a legitimate medical procedure. However, they were given it in a dose that was improper and to people who didn't need electric shock therapy, which led to psychological distress and suicide in many cases. Now that we have a fair bit amount of information on the methods of experimentation, let's talk about where these experimentations took place. Experiments were conducted across various institutions, often without the knowledge of the institution administrators, and sometimes with the knowledge of institution and its administrators. The first one we'll discuss is universities. Research was outsourced to universities where professors and researchers were sometimes unaware of the CIA's involvement conducted in these experiments, while others knew about the CIA's involvement. One of the most infamous individuals involved in MKUltra indirectly is Ted Kaczynski, also known as the Unabomber. He was indirectly involved in the MKUltra program during his time as an undergrad student at Harvard University. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Kaczynski participated in a psychological study led by Dr. Henry Murray. Although not officially a part of MKUltra, the study involved ethically questionable methods that mirrored the program's practices. Dr. Henry Murray studied at Harvard and sought to explore the effects of extreme stress on the human psyche. Kaczynski and other students were subjugated to intensive psychological interrogations, including the use of harsh criticism, personal attacks. These methods aim to measure their reaction and resilience under stress. While it is difficult to draw a direct line from these experiments to what Ted Kaczynski later did in his life, many speculate that the intense psychological stress he endured may have contributed to his later mental instability and violent behavior. Ted Kaczynski himself even mentioned the Harvard study in his writing, indicating its significant impact that it had on his life and maybe even his mental health for a long term. A second set of institutions consists of hospitals. Patients, particularly those in mental health facilities, were often subjugated to experiments without their informed consent. Number one, because patients with certain mental health conditions could not properly consent because they did not know what was going on. The second reason is because during the 1950s, the public view on people with mental illness was generally unfavorable, and people with mental illness were rejected by most places in society, therefore leaving them as a vulnerable target and target specifically by the MKUltra project. The third set of institutions that were used in the MKUltra experiments were prisons. Inmates were frequently used as test subjects given that they were very vulnerable and that they were already in a controlled environment perfect for testing. Now that we have knowledge on where these experiments took place, let's talk about actual ethical violations that these experiments conducted. Number one, lack of informed and consent individuals. Many experiments were conducted without a subject's knowledge or even their consent, a blatant violation of ethical standards. Number two, psychological and physical harm. Subjects often suffered long-term psychological and physical harm, including trauma, mental illness, and even death. Exploitation of vulnerable populations, which is number three. Prisoners, mental patients, and marginalized groups were disproportionately targeted for these experiments due to their perceived lack of agency. Moving on to our next point. How did the existence of MKUltra become public? The existence of MKUltra was first brought to public attention in 1975 through investigations by the Church Committee in 1977. Further details emerged after the Freedoms of Information Acts, which requests and led to the discovery of thousands of documents. The CIA officially halted MKUltra in 1973, but the program's legacy left a lasting impact on the government and the public perception of government and its overreach for national security. And for those that don't know, the Freedoms of Information Act provides the public the right to request access to records from the federal agencies of the United States of America. Now let's talk about the legal and social repercussions that were caused by MKUltra. Survivors of MKUltra and their experiments have pursued legal actions against the United States government. Some cases resulted in settlements, but many victims face challenges due to the covert nature of the program. MKUltra has since become a symbol of government overreach, and it shows the dangers of what unchecked power in the United States government can do. The legacy and the impact on ethical standards that MKUltra has had. MKUltra's legacy has had a lasting impact on how research involving human subjects is conducted. The program underscored the importance of informed consent, oversight, and accountability. Modern ethical standards, including the Belmont Report and institutionalized review boards, emphasize respect for a person and a test subject. The dark history of MK Ultra serves as a stark reminder of public potential for abuse when the government power is left unchecked. It highlights critical and the importance of ethical standards in scientific and medical research and enduring a need for transparency, accountability in the government. Through understanding the past, we can better safeguard for our future, for our children's future, and for our grandchildren's future. If you enjoyed this breakdown of MK Ultra and this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe because I will be making more videos like this, and thank you.